Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you joining us on the Scan Pro Video podcast. As you might notice, we are not in our usual studio, and that's because today's topic is video over IP and how it can be facilitated by hardware. And to join us on this, we've actually been joined by Liam from Newtek. Hi Liam, how's it going?
Hi, so nice to see you. How you doing? Thanks for having us.
I'm No, glad to have you here. It's really nice to see you too. So just for everyone's benefit, give us a little bit of background about yourself, how you got into working at Newtek and into the role that you work in currently.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, man. So I've been working at Newtek for 4.5 years now, and currently employed as senior solutions architect. So looking after some of our larger scale projects and installations across the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Russia. Originally, actually started off as an artist doing video installation, working on interactive projects. Back when I was at university at Central St Martin's, and ever since then sort of worked my way through the video industry, from advertising through to running live events. I worked in education for a bit, and actually working at Newtek's probably the first place I worked that brings all the sort of different experiences I've had over the years together. Even my post-production background is now becoming increasingly relevant with what we do.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's great to, be able to use all those skills that you've built up over the years and bring them all together at Newtek. And this sort of leads us into, as you mentioned, even your post-production background is now coming into play with Newtek, who are traditionally more of a live production company, or hardware company in that sense. And it all sort of seems to tie in around the idea of video over IP. So the world of video IP can be quite confusing with multiple different standards. What, in your opinion, helps NDI stand out from the crowd?
One of the single biggest things that's helped drive NDI is the fact that we effectively gave it away for free to the broadcast industry originally when we launched it in 2015. So anyone developing software can take the NDI SDK, which is freely available, and develop with it and actually embed it and actually build that into their software products, which means you're seeing it in everything from the likes of OBS and our free NDI tools at one end of the market, through to our parent company VizRT, who are dealing with the tier one broadcasters in the world, all able to use NDI and actually take that and put it into their software. Over the last few years, we've also now launched an NDI embedded SDK, where hardware vendors can now actually take the NDI protocol and put that into their product as well. The other part that's actually driven the adoption is actually the end users, because NDI is probably one of the easiest to use IP protocols on the market. It has features such as automatic discovery. So if you're on, say, a home network, you can plug NDI devices or applications in on your network, and as long as you've got MDNS, then auto discovery will start working, and users can literally just click and search for sources by name, rather than having to be experts in IP video, unlike some of the other competing protocols that are out there on the market.
Yeah, I think that's a really big thing. The ease of use and the fact that it's implemented in so much already. A lot of people don't know, that it's already built into applications, like you said, like OBS or Microsoft Teams or even Skype.
Yep.
It's all built in there and just ready to go. So there's nothing stopping you from downloading, any of these applications and the free tools that are on the Newtek site, and actually starting to get a bit hands-on with it. And because it's very easy to get into, like you said, you don't need to be a network engineer or anything like that to get hands on. I think it's incredible. Since I've started using it, I keep seeing more and more applications where I think I can fit it, where I can fit it into, and that sort of leads me on to my next question, which is, we mentioned, you sort of touched on there, it's in these applications, and it is in with higher, tier one broadcasters. But can you give us a bit of an insight into some of the workflows where NDI can be implemented?
Yeah, I mean, really, it can fit in almost anywhere you're going to be wanting to use high quality video and audio within an IP environment. So we have people, home game streamers utilizing it to actually capture the output from an NVIDIA graphics card using our NDI HX Capture, which is one of those free NDI tools. So that captures the gameplay. We can capture the webcam, or if you put an NDI-enabled PTZ camera, like one of our NDI PTZ UHD cameras, you can then capture the player as well and bring that on all real time. You can then drop that into, say, one of our Tricaster production systems. You can start doing your keying, your picture-in-picture, your recording, and everything else, and start building that out. Or you can use the likes of OBS for lower scale gameplay streaming and capture. The nice thing about this, though, is if you wanted to, say, scale that out into, say, an esports tournament, exactly the same principles can apply, and you can actually just grow out and have as many players on that network as you want, all being captured, all available to be able to switch to sources. So it gives you real scalability, even just starting with those free tools. Of course, we also have hardware converters like the Spark Plus IO, so you can connect those up to consoles like Xbox and the like, and use that to capture the output from those the other day. We actually just did that recently down at AFC Wimbledon for an event, and we had the players there just running on the Xbox, put them up onto the video wall, and brought that into the Tricaster. So that gives you some scalability around that side of it, but it extends into things like e-learning, where your mobile phone with our NDI HX capture can actually become a handheld high quality 4K video camera on the network. So Electrica can show close-ups of things on the desk, and we can distribute that feed out to everybody's desk via NDI if we wanted to. At the other end of the equation, we have projects like our Guildhall School of Music and Drama project that we actually just won 2 AV awards for on Friday night, where when you start extending NDI out and you combine it with audio protocols like Dante and you put our larger Tricaster systems in the mix, we're then able to actually distribute, say, orchestras across multiple rooms and multiple buildings and have them all play together with their own return video and audio feeds. And on another scale, we can do whole office buildings. We can use NDI not just to drive video production, but also provide AV and video conferencing integration. As you mentioned just now, NDI with Microsoft Teams fully supporting NDI in the next release, you'll be able to actually separate out individual callers and audio feeds, return NDI back as a video source, integrate something like we're doing today's call. But not just that, but you'll be able to actually, a room can actually act as a production space. It can be a normal meeting room driven with NDI. It can be a video conferencing room with NDI. And because of that self-service aspect and auto discovery, where users choose devices based on name, again, it reduces the complexity for the day-to-day user, but gives you that real flexibility of changing what a room is at any point into any type of video or audio application use.
Yeah, and that's so powerful, and I think it's important to pick up on something you mentioned there, which was obviously the 2 awards you won for the Guildhall project, but obviously you said you were splitting out an orchestra across multiple rooms, and it's the part I wanted to pick up on that is obviously I dabble in music myself, and if you're playing as part of a band or anything like that, especially an orchestra, the timing, being in separate rooms from someone and trying to keep in time is incredibly difficult. So that really highlights the sort of low latency of NDI as well. It's not the sort of web conferencing or interface that we've become used to over the last 2 years. We've been at during this pandemic where you find yourself waiting on seeing if someone's going to talk, or hesitation because you don't know if they've heard you finish your sentence. That sort of latency plays a big part.
Yeah, exactly. And so in that particular project, we got the latency down to around 1/10 of a second. Because NDI is compressed, so we can't be completely zero latency. But if you compare it to, say, traditional SDI chains or HDMI chains of standard devices, every time you add another device in the mix into the chain, you're adding incremental amounts of latency as you go along. So in a lot of ways, even though NDI has inherently a little bit more latency than uncompressed formats, by the time you build a whole solution, they actually can be comparable, if not actually slightly faster in terms of the workflow. So we've actually really proven with projects like that you can do some very, very incredible things very, very easily. But again, it's going to be about that workflow specificity. In the case of Guildhall, the conductor, is actually completely isolated, but because they're getting the return feeds as the same as everybody else, it means that the timing just happens to work together. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with a compressed protocol. And I think latency, especially in the last 18 months, I think people have started to accept that actually the trade-offs of using high quality broadcast video, albeit in a really efficiently compressed manner, enable you to do far, far more than you could with any of the heavier protocols or standards that are out there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that raises quite an interesting point, which is obviously we've mentioned over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, we've been doing a lot more of these sorts of web conferencing calls and things like that. How have you seen the uptake of NDI grow over the last 2 years in general?
It's just gone from strength to strength. I think when we launched the Tricaster to Elite platform, which is our sort of flagship integrated production system, we saw the uptake of NDI on the local network for building live productions really, really hit new strides. But because we can integrate that directly into things like Teams using our Live Call Connect feature, or video conferencing platforms like Zoom, Discord, and Tencent, it meant you could really bring all of those different sources and devices and platforms together. A good case study we did recently is the World Literacy Foundation Awards, where we had about 8 different judges on Skype TX. So they're all coming as Skype connections into a unit here at my home studio. We use NDI to connect that to the 2 Elite. We then brought our audience, our nominees, in on Zoom, and we could spotlight those and bring those into this award ceremony. And then the actual main presenters over Skype, and me here using NDI cameras in my home studio, which meant we could run a whole production virtually. And so the fact that these technologies then extend into other tools and platforms really gives you a fantastic tool set, which means that you'll be able to go from local productions, as we knew it before the last 18 months, through to full remote productions. And I think now in the near future, it's going to be hybrid productions, where you can use everything on site and still have a remote audience and still live stream. And say a guest can't make it, you can dial them in. With NDI 5, the latest release, we're actually going to be able to go even further and connect NDI over the public internet. So I can securely link different NDI networks and devices around the world over the internet now with ultra low latency, and even take control of remote cameras, remote production systems and Tricasters. It's really, really going to change how we do remote production moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to see how it's going to develop. We're no longer sort of bound by the constrictions that we've had in traditional production workflows. Anyone from anywhere can be involved in any capacity. It's like you said, you can have a remote audience, you can have a remote vision mixer, you could do whatever it is from wherever. And I think that's really exciting to see this open up so much. Obviously, it's over the last 2 years, it's been hard for everyone to be stuck indoors, but the sort of acceleration that we've seen on these workflows, I think is just sort of leading us to more exciting possibilities as we go forward.
Yeah, we've had other customers do award ceremony even with our smallest production system, which is the Tricaster Mini. And they managed to actually increase their audience about 5-fold compared to a normal in-house event. So I don't think the remote aspect's ever really going to go away. But as you say, we're just going to see higher quality, lower latency, with better production techniques moving forward. Everybody's had to adapt, but we've all learned a lot about this in the last 18 months. What works, what doesn't, and now it's like, right, now how can we up the game? How can we improve the quality of that going forward? And that's really where technologies like Bridge with NDI 5 really going to start coming to their own in the next phase of video production.
Yeah, and you've mentioned, we've talked quite a bit about NDI and how it's implemented in as a protocol, and it's implemented in all these software applications. But as you mentioned with the Spark connectors and the Tricasters, it's not just a software-based solution. There are, or it does tie in with hardware.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a software-based protocol, but with things like FPGA, or what's called field programmable gate arrays, living in all sorts of products now. The majority of hardware in some way is software embedded on a chip. That's where things like our NDI embedded SDK really come into their own. We started off doing this with NDI HX in our PTZ cameras, which we're now sort of evolved even further. So that's now rolled into the full NDI developer kit. But that's led for the likes of ourselves, Panasonic, Sony, now Canon, all producing NDI-enabled cameras, and Bird Dog, of course, and many, many more. But you'll also see it in mini converters from ourselves and other third parties like Bird Dog that I mentioned, all the way through to other hardware devices. We're seeing things like streaming encoders starting to hit the market, and all sorts of different products out there, even displays that are now going to be able to decode or NDI as part of those workflows. So it's software, but it's software living in hardware. And again, that's part of what really makes it so unique, in that it goes from everything from your mobile device to your laptop through to your desktop computer, as I said, into various different hardware devices that are out there, but all still working in exactly the same way with the same methodology. So the user experience in terms of connecting to utilizing and getting creative with that content remains exactly the same.
Yeah, and I think the uptake we've seen in it, both as a workflow tool, people picking up NDI as a solution, but also from third-party manufacturers, as you said, companies like Bird Dog. I believe Panasonic have some in their PTZ cameras. There's on the encoder side, there's Kilo View, and there's encoder decoders like companies Magewell. All these different companies are all picking it up, and as you said, screens as well. It's again, it's exciting to see where it's going to go, and with the ease of sort of use and the automatic discovery that you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast. The fact that you could be working in a facility, wherever it is you're working, if your screen or your display supports NDI, you can just pick up whatever NDI feed it is going around the building, without the need for additional hardware or decoders or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just a really sort of growing, exciting possibility, I think.
And it expands to video walls as well. Actually, I mean, we're driving football stadiums, we're driving the screens around stadiums using things like our NC2IO modules in tandem with the likes of video wall processors like Dataton, Watchout, and many more. And that's something that we're going to see increasingly. Is NDI going from being a small scale thing to actually driving whole event experiences. We've seen casinos being driven using NDI, football stadiums, live events, you name it. And again, it's all not just about bringing content in; it's about delivering content to your local audience and your remote audience simultaneously, and that's something that we're able to do in a really powerful, easy way.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot there about production work, was live production. What we're used to. Whether it's esports or houses of worship or corporate implementation, all the way up to broadcasters. But as you mentioned earlier, there is now scope for NDI within the post-production world as well. If I'm right, both Avid Media Composer now supports NDI output, and I believe there's also a plugin for DaVinci Resolve as well that enables NDI output from there. So I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about where you see it being used in the post-production space.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, there's Avid. I believe you're right. There is a third-party plugin now for Resolve, but Adobe, we have our own plugin for enabling NDI as a video and audio output, and Adobe Premiere, but also with Autodesk now as well. So nice. It's not slowing down. Final Cut Pro X is going to have NDI output from the Mac. That really does allow you to actually start using the NDI protocol to distribute playout. Now, one example is, maybe you're going to do edit while record. If you use our Newtek remote storage in conjunction with a Tricaster, you can actually be recording and have an editor working on those files live in Adobe, and then we can play straight off the timeline. Or, if the editor wants to work in Avid or Final Cut, we do a different encoding workflow. Again, you say you want to go live with the highlights package, the editor can hit play and we just bring that in as a live source. The other side of it is when you actually start looking at remote editors and remote workers, and if you're editing from home, how are you going to get NDI output onto your desktop? Now that's all going to be doable by using encoders, decoders, technologies like Bridge that we're just starting to explore, and of course things like Avid can be put into the cloud now. We're seeing remote editing instances being deployed on the likes of Amazon S3, and if you've got that NDI output and you partner that with Bridge, that output could go anywhere. It could go to your producers, your directors, allow them to watch, as opposed to going to a dedicated screening room. So all sorts of different aspects going on there. It's from the live production to post and back workflow through to remote editing and remote post-production, which is where NDI can really, really help. And from a technology standpoint, for your IT department or your networking teams, they're dealing with exactly the same protocol to handle. So it's not like, we need to reconfigure it for this standard instead. It's all NDI, and that's part of the real groundbreaking part of it.
Yeah, and I think engineers around post-production engineers around the country are relaxing at hearing you say that as well, because it is going to become part of part of normal working. If anything, the pandemic sort of sped this process up, but
Mm-hmm.
it's always been coming. Remote client sessions where a
Mm-hmm.
director or whoever can sit in and view the edit without having to come down to the office. Has always been something that I've been asked about before, but it's never really, to me, it's never always been feasible. But I've
Mm-hmm.
done a few of those myself over lockdown as well. So, and again, all based on NDI. It's very powerful for what you can do. So you mentioned the cloud there, and a lot of we know a lot of production and post production is moving to the cloud now. How does NDI fit into that workflow?
Well, with the new transports like reliable UDP that feature an NDI5, it's very much geared towards about working within the cloud where needed. So, like with VisRT Group, they have full virtualized graphics and production systems that can live in the likes of Amazon S3 now. But you're always going to need to get that back somewhere locally. Or actually deliver to those systems. So that's where NDI5 can really come in with Bridge, in that we can use AS256 encryption and actually have on our free Studio Monitor application at home, a single pane of glass on a laptop. Any PC laptop with an Intel chip or above, or AMD now can run it. And then you can actually go and connect to that remote cloud instance that's running one of those services and take control of it, make changes, and actually use it almost like as a full KVM solution via NDI. But it's not just about putting services and devices into data centers and virtualizing those stacks. That can be quite expensive and costly, albeit there are a lot of benefits to that, depending on the workflow that you want to achieve. And I think there's been a big change now that, for years people have talked about the cloud as just that. It's virtualization, it's not on your premises. But with NDI5, we're actually moving into virtualized distributed production. And it's something that we saw happen with render engines a number of years ago. They went from being cloud-based to actually on-prem, just albeit virtualized. So with NDI5 and Bridge, it means I can have my home studio here, and I can have a remote camera with an operator at the other end, but we can communicate and collaborate. I can send video feeds back to that remote presenter. I could have multiple studios at my main headquarters worldwide, but then have little satellite green screen studios like you and I are using today that we can then connect in and out of and bring those in as part of that production as well. So cloud really is a few people are arguing out, it's just the internet. But now we can move NDI over the internet. That I say that can be virtualized in data centers, wherever you want to host them, but it can also be local and on-prem and still give you all of those benefits of remote working, remote connectivity, and remote collaboration in that vitally crucial, secure manner, and with really low latency as well.
Yeah, and it's just so powerful. The more you sort of dig into it, the more you realize what you can do. It feels a lot of the time like the possibilities are endless. And before we sort of wrap up a little bit, I think it's worth us mentioning, how we're actually running this podcast today. As I mentioned at the sort of top of the show, we're not in our usual studio. We are doing this over the public internet at the moment. So do you want to give us a little run through how we've set this up?
Yeah, we're just running it through Microsoft Teams today, actually. And obviously Alistair's in his home studio on a green screen there. Likewise, to me in London. Got the Tricaster running here beside me. And effectively using our Live Call Connect feature on the Tricaster 2 Elite. That's then separating Alistair out from the Teams call, bringing him direct into the Tricaster as another input. I'm using an NDI camera here on my green screen, and then we're actually able to actually put ourselves into almost any space that we like. Obviously, we don't just have to do picture-in-picture this. This was a time thing today, but there are some examples on our website. It's on the webinars that I've done with my colleague Zoltan, where we can inhabit the same virtual set or the same virtual environment and create all sorts of different creative content using these different remote sources and many more. And it's a very exciting, powerful tool set to be able to work with.
Yeah, totally. And it's always worth saying, those resources that you have on the Newtek site are fantastic. You can also be linked through to the NDI Tools package as well. So for anyone wanting to sort of get hands-on with it, you don't have to rush out and invest in any kit or anything like that. There are free NDI tools, like the Studio Monitor, NDI Player, all these sorts of things as well, that you can download, get hands-on with. Whether it's with any of the applications we've mentioned, OBS or even VLC, things like that. And yeah, there's also the SDK available there as well. So anyone actually looking to develop their own tools or implement NDI into their existing products can get hold of the SDK there as well. Are there any limitations or restrictions around that?
Only if you want to really, at the moment, if you want to start embedding it in hardware, there are different relationships that the NDI side of our business have with different vendors. But if you want to develop with the standard SDK for software, you can just take that. It's freely available and implement that as you see fit. So all of the NDI tools, which also include a webcam input, so you can send NDI into any application that uses webcam and mic on a PC or Mac to actually return into other applications that don't already support NDI, are all available from ndi.tv/tools. For deeper technical documentation or a white paper on the best practices for NDI, it's just www.ndi.tv/SDK for both the software and the advanced embedded SDK there as well, including one for Unreal as well that you can download from that page there too. All of the information on the Newtek Tricaster product line and the rest of our NDI portfolio is all available on newtek.com. Or they can, of course, reach out to yourselves or to us, and we're more than happy to arrange a remote demo of any aspect of what we've been discussing today.
That's brilliant. I think actually, it's one thing hearing people talk about it, but if you're actually able to get, a hands-on demo, then it makes such a difference. Well, thank you again so much for your time, Liam. I really appreciate it. It's been great to learn a bit about NDI. Thank you for taking this time out of your day.
Always a pleasure.
Glad to have you. So yeah, if as Liam mentioned there, if you have any questions around Newtek or NDI that you feel that we can help you with, reach out to the Scan Pro Video team. We'd love to hear from you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.